5. Chapter 4, verse 5. The Blessed Lord said, "Many have been my births, and many also yours. I remember all of mine, though you remember yours not." Well, again, he's talking to the average devotee. He's talking to you and me. He wasn't really talking to Arjuna, because Arjuna was a master. And it's so interesting to realize that Yogananda, who says he was Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita presents himself as this humble devotee. And Yogananda in Autobiography of a Yogi also presented himself as this humble devotee. But he was a master. And great saints that he met when he was a young boy, they used to call him Chotha Mahashai, great soul. He translated in his book, Little Sir. That's not what he really meant. Mahashai means great soul. And so the quality that Master brought into this world was something that he brought in from long ago. He needed to express these things as if it was new in order to give us courage. I mentioned this yesterday or the day before, that I said to him once that when you are a liberated soul and incarnate as an avatar, do you remember, are you in God consciousness the whole time? Because you see in Autobiography of a Yogi that Lahiri Mahashaya, who was Yoga avatar, till the age of 40 he was still thinking of being a normal person, at least that's the way it was presented. And Yogananda also. And yet there was this deeper quality in him. When Sri Yukteswar, I remember him talking about, Sri Yukteswar was very stern in his discipline. And Yogananda, if he would walk across the terrace and trip over a rug, Sri Yukteswar said, "Look at that oaf." He was trying to get Master to understand, to accept. Why did he have to help him to understand anything? A master goes through these things, through the learning process and so on, just to be an example to you and me. But the people in the crowd would always laugh, and Master looked at them. He said, I looked at them and I thought, if you knew what I have. He knew that he had it. He had all of that. But he pretended not to have it. And he went through these things. It wasn't just an act. It wasn't hypocritical. He was going through this for our sake. And so it was that Ramakrishna too, he was an avatar, but he had to go through such effort to find God. And this is the reality. I remember I used to go, because I lived near Kalibari in Dakshineshwar, and I used to go there and meditate. And I asked one of the people who were managing the temple if I could take a picture of Kali. And they said no, but you can take pictures outside. Well, this was sort of a fun experience for me because I was sitting in that little large portico with pillars, and I was sitting in front of the temple, but there were always people in front, and so I couldn't see the image of Kali. But one time puja came. At the time for puja, then suddenly there was this strip of cloth on both sides, and I had a clear view of Kali. And I thought, well, he told me I can't take a picture of Kali, but he did say I could take a picture of the outside, and I am outside, and if Kali happens to get into the picture, that's not wrong, is it? So anyway, I took 2 pictures of her, and suddenly there was 5 or 6 managers and officers, their officials, standing around me demanding that I come to the office, and I needed to calm my mind a little bit. So I just said, well, wait a minute till puja's over, then I'll come with you. So they couldn't stop me from that. So I meditated and asked Divine Mother to help, to show me what to do. Then when they went to the temple, to their office, they began shouting at me, right, I told you couldn't take pictures of it. And I said, well, yes, but you told me I could take pictures of the outside. Well, you very well know why you took pictures of that part of the outside. And so we were sort of in an impasse. And I kept saying, look, you sell pictures of this, photographs of this image of Kali in your marketplace. So what can be wrong? It's not a question of a sin. It's not a question of blasphemy. It's just a question of competition with you, and I'm not going to sell these pictures. Oh, finally he began to weep for himself, and he said, oh, I may lose my job over this. And As soon as he said that, he wanted me to give the roll of film from the camera, but as soon as he said that, then I thought, well, that's much more important than my having a picture. And so I began to rewind the film, and as soon as he saw that I was willing to give up my own fulfillment for so that he wouldn't be suffering, then he said, well, I tell you what, keep it, but give me a written letter promising never to use it commercially. I said, I'd be happy to do that. And so I wrote it, and with that he let me keep it. And then a few weeks later, somebody came to the temple, and he heard this Swami talking to a group of people. And he was saying, and he kept saying, you sell this picture in the marketplace, so it's not a question of blasphemy. So I have to suppose that my little deed has gone down in history there. But the thing is that when you do dharma, I wanted that picture, but I felt it was undharmic to cause another man to suffer because of it. And when he saw that, then he was on my side. He helped me. Well, you will find that God will be on your side if you live in the right way. So, you remember your past lives? No, probably not. God does, and God has been with you so many times. I didn't actually ask my guru what I had been in former lives, but once I asked him if I'd been a yogi before, and he said many times, you'd have had to be here, to be living here as my disciple. But one time I had trouble with my digestion, and he said, you had that before, that's why you have it now. And another time I told him that I had long wanted to live alone, and he said, that's because you've done it before. He said, most of my disciples have lived alone as hermits many times in the past. So you can see these things in yourself, you can see them in others, but understand that it's all just a part of that dream. You go through so many incarnations, and of course you will have a spiritual karma. When my guru accepted me, he said, I'm taking you because you have good karma. Well, I have to accept that. If I've been seeking God for all these lives, many lives in fact, then of course I have good karma. I probably have some bad karma too, but I have good karma. And so you should think in terms. Don't ever say, oh, my karma, my karma. Realize that your karma is a temporary thing. You can get rid of the worst karma. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, even the worst of sinners, if he steadfastly meditates and seeks me, he will come to me. But don't think in terms of this one life. It will help you to find him if you realize that you've come back many, many times. And certainly what awakens your desire for God is this thought that I have been going so long, I've had so many experiences, it's reached a point of anguishing monotony. I kept thinking I'll find happiness in this thing and that thing and the other thing. It never came to me. Every delusion, it promised so much and always broke its promise. There comes instinctively in the soul this thought that I've had enough of this, I want to get out of it. But I think one of the great disadvantages for Westerners, Christians and Jews both, is the thought that we live only once. Well, if you're living only once, then you might as well get a little kick out of it. That's sort of the thought that people have. The Catholic Church decided that it's not safe to tell people that they won't get out, won't get out until they've lived many lives, because in their next life they might not be Catholics, and so what then? So the Catholics decided it's much safer to promise them that they'll get to heaven right now. Well, there are several things wrong with that. One is that the heaven they promise is just in an ego, in a physical body. There's no merging with God, no oneness with him. And what can be a greater hell than being stuck in this ego for eternity? But the other side of it is that if you really realize you have lived a long time, then comes this thought that, isn't it time I changed? And when you consider, Buddha, for example, said, the reason we should love everybody is because everyone on earth at one time or another has been close to you. That's quite a statement, isn't it? 6 billion people right now. I think that after the great purging this planet's likely to go through, it may become 100 million. Where do those other souls go? Well, there are plenty of planets to go to. That's no great issue. But the fact of being in this body, a body, for so many incarnations, it does put a little stiffness in your spine. Makes you sort of think and wake up. Think a bit. Well, the whole path to God is such a winding journey. And there are certain things that help us to understand that we want to get out of it. One of them is the simple fact that everything is based on duality. Every time you find success at last, after many incarnations maybe, you're bound to lose it again. You can't have a permanent anything. Every time you find just the right person, there was a story that Master told about a man, my Guru told, about a man who was, when he came time to die, he'd been healthy, but there's an angel who came to him at death and he said, what would you like in your next life? He said, well, I'd like to be wealthy as well as healthy because I'm always starving for food. And so the angel said, all right, we'll give you that. And he came back in this world and he had a lot of money and he had a lot of good health, but he was lonely. And as he was dying, the angel appeared to him and said, what do you want now? And he said, well, I would like a wife to share my good fortune with. So in his next life, he had a wife as well as a healthy body and as well as wealth. And the trouble was, she didn't live long enough. After a year, she died. And he spent the rest of his life worshipping her gloves and her sari and all that. And finally, when the angel came at the end of that life, he said, what do you want now? He said, well, Lord, I would like to have money, of wealth. I would like to be healthy. I would like to have a wife. And I would like her not to live such a short time. I'd like to have her live a long time. And the next life, he had health, and he had wealth, and he had a wife, and she lived a long time. The trouble was she lived too long. And he began to get tired of her. And he fell in love with his secretary, and his secretary ran off with all his money, and there he was left with nothing. And he thought, oh God, nothing works. And when the angel appeared to him, he said, no, what now? And he says, Lord, nothing doing. I don't want anything. Wherever you are, that's where I want to be. And whatever I get, I know I will lose. I don't want anything except just to do your will and to feel your joy. Well, this is sort of encapsulating the story of incarnations. How many lives we think that we will find and to finally get it all together, finally have what we want, money, health, a companion, power, success, everything. And it never lasts. There's always a catch in it. And even when there isn't a catch, you get tired of it. And even if there is the success that you have, there's something in the law of duality that will force you to fail in another time. You can't help it. The wave that comes up to create this manifestation, this manifested universe, has to go down again. Dvaita, duality, is an absolute fact of the universe. And any time you find what you think you wanted, you find that you've lost it again. There's that story I've told, which is a beautiful story of somebody who was well-to-do. And, anyway, when this friend met him, he was just happy, but he hadn't a lot of money. And this friend asked him, why are you happy? Why are you peaceful? And he said, come, I'll show you. And he took him to a drawer and pulled out of that drawer a little fragile shell. And he said, he said, the shell is my secret. And the young man said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, I used to be very wealthy. And when the stock market crashed, I lost everything. And I decided to commit suicide. And I tried to go into the ocean and the waves kept beating me back. And one time when they beat me back and I was on my knees trying to get up so I could try again, I saw this shell rolling in the surf. And it was so fragile I could have snapped it like that, and yet it was whole. And I asked myself, how did that shell manage to survive this pounding of the surf? And I realized that the answer was that the shell had gone with the currents, not against them. And this man realized that's what he had been doing. Losing his money, that was only the beginning of a new experience. And so he went with everything that happened to him, and he found peace of mind that way. So if you lose everything, God may be just wanting to give you a new experience of life. He may be wanting to show you how you could be happy even without money. Don't think of anything as a misfortune. Everything can teach you truth if you have faith and give the fruits of your actions to God. He will take care of you. But what a lot of lessons we have to learn on the way. And people sort of coming up in that wave and sort of on their hands and knees on the shore with the wave, the water swirling around them, and they look up and they say, God, why are you doing this to me? But when you learn to go with it, suddenly you understand there's great bliss in this world. There's great bliss in everything. Don't think that any opposition or difficulty is for your harm. There are no such things as difficulties, my Guru said. There are no such things as obstacles. There are only opportunities. You have the opportunity in this world. If you look at things right, have a courageous attitude. It takes courage to live in this world and to live rightly. But with that courage, you can say, whatever you give me, Lord, I accept with joy, because I know that you are my sole reality. Joy to you.